We have to accept illness in all of its forms. We should accept it as part of our healing journey. Within every illness of the body, there lies a deep lesson to be learned. The deeper the illness, the more there is to be learned. The most debilitating diseases, such as severe depression, carry immense life realizations. The key here is to know deeply that the illness will pass. Because, such as every lesson has a beginning and an end, sickness has a beginning and an end. When there is no resonance between the body and the mind, then the only way our body can convey the message to the mind is through illness. It is a clear sign that the body is trying to tell us something, that maybe the time for change has come. The body is highly intelligent and in tune with our higher self, whereas the mind is not, so it will signal the mind if there is a misbalance of some sort. Our body can heal itself from every disease and can make way for every disease to develop as well. If the mind is so unwilling to change in order to facilitate a healthy body, our vehicle will make sure that the message is received. We then can begin to interpret disease as allowed by the body rather than inflicted externally, so the need for change becomes clear and evident to the mind. Of course, there are external sources of disease, but the actual manifestation is governed by the body itself. So listening to these signs is of most importance. If we choose not to listen, we choose to be disconnected. Being in tune and loving our body is the key. The most important ability of the mind is to be able to focus. A mind which is focused and awareness is at the point of focus is able to change reality itself. Energy flows where the focus is. This is the true power of the mind. Our daily life is governed by this ability. The interactions with others, the ability to channel art and express ourselves are all dependent on this. And whether through meditation, yoga, or practice, one should strive towards focusing the mind. In this way, we are channeling all of our potential towards our purpose. On the other hand, a mind which is not focused in the present and fluctuating will continuously drain energy away from the body. Awareness moves from one element of reality to another just as energy is only transformed but not lost or produced. If we are able to fully deploy our awareness to the process or activity we attend to, then nothing is unachievable. From the egoic perspective, this task is already completed. In that case, the awareness is already focused on the idea, or the association of the self. Then the mind is always focused. The energy is conserved. This is in place for most modern people. But what happens if this idea of the self is shattered, lost, or transformed? Well, that kind of focus is not present anymore. Then we begin anew. Then you might ask, isn't the ego providing us with a mind that is not fluctuating? When one is ever focused on the egoic self, all that will ever be of importance to him will be the false self. All that he or she will ever initiate will be towards justifying the existence of the egoic self. This will result into an experience based upon the principle of division, as the ego is the perception of separation itself. And this is what an unawakened mind is. If that is the case, then there has not been an awakening process yet. If the mind is always focused on the idea of the self, then the person will never be able to connect to the deeper self. If one is rather focused on love instead, then a deep connection is established. Divine love is beyond mental modifications. Your ability to focus the mind and awareness is equal to your ability to be present in the now. This focused state of mental energy is the normal state, but we become distracted and the flow is interrupted. Stillness of mind is necessary in order to achieve such a focus. When we live through the ego, our focus is always aimed towards the personal self, towards I. For a plain level of awareness, this will ensure a mind-focused state. But what about the mind which is not ever focused on the personal self? Is this awakening? When we are no longer only focused on the I, it is within our decision where to focus our energetic flow. We become the absolute creators of reality. Now the question arises, what does your mind focus on? We are not the thoughts, and we are not the image or projection of ourselves. We are not the mind. We are much more than that. We are the source of consciousness. Once we truly realize and embody the fundamental truth that we are the sky and thoughts are clouds passing by, and self-identification is just a tool, then we begin to operate on a higher vibrational level, the level of pure awareness and love. We become the painters, the artists of our own creation. This abandonment of self-association and mental modification is freedom. It is freedom from ego. Once this is achieved, there is no longer a dependency. There is only the experience of life and consciousness. One can illustrate this realization with the potentiometers of a radio. We, as the frequency of human consciousness, can dial up or down the potentiometers of self-association. For example, Dimitar, the musical artist man of no ego, or Nikolai, the basketball player, or Vasil, the yogi and spiritualist. These are all mental modifications, and as such, can be further empowered or completely dissolved by the self, just as the radio can switch stations. Ego trip is not the issue here. The issue here is the ego trap, which is the complete association of the self with the ego. Once we come to this understanding, the question arises, who is creating these identifications? Is it the ego? The mind? The self? I, as an identification myself, cannot provide the answer for you. I can provide a vision only. The question, who am I, is the axe with which to cut off the ego. And this is an internal question. But just imagine for a moment the way of life devoid of identification, pure life experience, and flow. And ask yourself, is it possible? Is it possible to be immersed in life without self-associating? I believe it is. That, to me, is the man of no ego. Life is as it is. Our minds are the creators of drama. There is no drama. The challenges will always be there. But who is interpreting challenge as drama, and why? Which part of us prefers to skip the challenges of life? Well, it is only the ego that does not learn and expand from challenges. Ego does not have the capacity to learn and evolve. It simply acts. It simply inflates or deflates. On the other hand, our true self, as well as our bodies, has an immeasurable potential for expansion. On a physical level, one's body can be transformed completely by means of challenge and body work. The same can be said for the realization of the true self. By means of inner work and challenge, we can grow and expand in order to fully embrace the deeper self. When facing these challenges, we begin to tune in to the flow of life. Just like the flow of a wave, there will be ups and downs. This means that whenever you are presented with a tremendous challenge, eventually you will be presented with tremendous relief. When this principle is understood, challenges can be perceived as signs of upcoming relief rather than suffering. How we react to these situations of life is also very important. Our reactions are a release of energy. And the question is, do you want to release this energy? Maybe, maybe not. The immediate response to these obstacles is a testimony for one's level of balance. If we are centered enough, our response to the outer world will be in line with our deeper truth, even when life brings upon these hardships. The past is gone, so letting go is actually unburdening your mind from what is not now, from what is not real. By doing this, and leaving behind what is not needed, we begin to approach true stillness. Letting go is a state, and in that state, one is not clinging to the things of life. The person only experiences them in the present, but beyond that, they have no effect. He or she is not holding to anything. He or she is not counting on anything. Holding to and counting on are of the past and future. You cannot hold the present moment, and you cannot count on it. The present cannot be clinged to. It can be experienced only. And to do so fully requires complete stillness of mind. What you previously experienced and will experience is just a thought, and thus not the stillness. And how to get there? The mind cannot instruct itself to be still. This will never work. We can enter stillness of mind through the body and breath. Nothing is more calm than the present moment. No worries of the past, nor anxieties of the future. Calmness of mind is of the centered being. Because, as we already mentioned, mind is key. So if we choose to react negatively to the world, we miss out on the experience of the full wavelength, the lows and the highs, the negative and the positive. It is within stillness that we realize our wave position. Being still-minded allows for an expanded awareness, capable of such realization. And again, how do we calm the mind? By letting go. Of what? Everything. But if one lets go of everything, does he hold any value to the world? Yes, because your value is measured by every single action that you take in the present. Every reaction, every interaction, every expression of yours is what matters. The present is where you find your own value. I truly believe that there is a sense of peace and calmness in every one of us. It is inherent, and that peace is eternal. We can choose to remember the feeling of that state and reconnect to it at any given moment. Regardless of the state we are currently in, we have connection to what is deep within us, to that which is ever present. The true self emerges in inner peace and calmness. Any self-invoked stress or anxiety will push you away from it. Believe in the present moment. Have the courage to be in it and let go. Your intuition will carry you. Surrender to the ever-present and be. All cloudiness and negativity will eventually subside. A person who dwells in the now is fully engaged with life. To be fully engaged is be ready to face everything that life has to offer. When we focus our mind on the past or future, we are missing out on life itself. But this doesn't mean that one should never dwell in past nostalgia or future anxieties. Again, it is within the balance of the states that we meet our true selves. But does this imply that one should monitor his own thoughts, or in other words, think about thoughts? No. Once known, one should always gravitate to the present state. Once experienced, one should always aim for it. And this is all internal. The switch can be made at any moment. You are yourself in the present moment only. With every moment passed, you are a new version of you. Your past or future self is just a projection, but the true self, yourself, is now. So in other words, your expression of being is now, and it is expressed in what you do, how you act and interact in this very moment. The realization of this reveals to the mind the possibility to define yourself in every moment. And as you begin to do so, you are less and less defined by the past or future. You begin to truly live and not think about living instead. So in this line of thought, it is important to be aware of the way you react and treat other beings in the present as well. Do not base your relationship with other beings based on your past trauma or future anxieties. There is no such relationship. Base it on the fundamental truth that we are all interconnected and of the same source, which is manifesting in the eternal now. Because that is all there is. The past and future are just a projection. They are non-existent. If you are able to be fully aware in the present, then you can begin to read the signs of life. The signs of life are the signs of the body and the signs of nature and animals. And nature is constantly speaking to us. With every bird's whisper and every crack of the woods, it is speaking to our heart. Shamans are able to tune into these signs, and it only requires a certain sensitivity which is inherent to us all. But we have severed that connection. We have lost that sensitivity. This is the result of the endless cycles, or in other words, the complete association with I. And only by letting go or unassociating can we start the process of rebuilding this connection. Every one of us can connect to nature and begin to build a relationship with it. One can actually feel pure, unconditional love in its presence. Being in tune with nature allows for a deep healing process to occur in the body. The most literal example would be allergies can be cleansed. For what is an allergy but a deep disconnect from an aspect of nature, the allergen? Most of us live in a sort of self-defined artificial bubble, or in other words, disconnected from reality, and reconnecting is the path of no ego. When we truly connect with nature, our whole perspective on life changes. Nature is source. It is the source of all living beings on this planet. We need to reconnect and become the two-legged stewards of the planet. Our bodies have a natural rhythm tuned to nature's cycles, the sunrise and sunset. It is within this rhythm that hormones are released, and thus waking up according to it is very beneficial. If a person wakes up at the end of the cycle, he will be rested and energized. If he doesn't, even though he has slept for hours and hours, he will feel as if he hasn't slept enough. Human beings are deeply reliant on the sun. We can tell our bodies when to wake up from sleep, or in other words, the mind can instruct the body. It is always listening, and what we are saying to it is very important. We can observe and learn from animals. Animals are not led by their thoughts. They are led by their instincts. The thought does not precede the action. Therefore, they are actually led by their intuition, as intuition only happens in the immediate moment, whereas thought is the future or past. Animals rely on the sensory input of the present moment. For the next moment, the sensory input is different. They do not plan or think. They are fully aware of what is. With humans, it is quite the opposite. As our awareness is broader in a sense, our sensory input and intuition need to be processed by the mind. The input needs to be questioned and approved by the mind before we can act upon it, and thus the body-mind connection is corrupted. This is a form of disconnect from the present moment. But we can learn to be like the animals. We can learn from them as they can learn from us. This is evolution. To think that we are more or less than the animals is just another ego trap. We are all one, and we come from Source. But we are different, and we can learn from our differences. As part of these signs of life, our body speaks to us. We are being given signals all throughout the day, and our bodies are far more intelligent than our minds. The body is the vehicle of life, functioning on many levels, almost incomprehensible to the mind. And we take it as granted. We believe that the body is there to serve us, to serve our minds. Well, that's what the ego tells us. But if we separate ourselves from mind, we realize that we are the self, not the mind. And from that perspective, we begin to treat the body as the receiver of self. We begin to truly love and take care of it. We begin to listen carefully to every signal the body is sending and deeply addressing it. Indigenous people of the planet have developed a strong connection between the body and the mind. We as modern people have lost it. But we can regain it. That is the point we are making. For indigenous people, the posture, for example, is of big importance. Their body is a symbol of power and a representation of energy. Poor body posture can cripple the energetic flow, as well as the body-mind connection. And sitting for long periods of time is indeed very detrimental, as we are not designed to be stagnant. Once we establish such connection and connect the body and mind, we truly become an avatar of ourselves, rather than an universal occurrence. And then the present moment begins to guide us. We are in resonance with life, and the immediate moment becomes available to us, rather than being veiled and obscured. In other words, you let go of the need to think or plan or conceptualize your next action. This will come naturally. You are in complete connection with life and its only real manifestation, the now, the flow. Internal is eternal. The mind wants us to believe that we are finite, that we are temporary, and once we die, existence is over. But that is untrue. When we go to sleep and our body is shut down, our inner self does not cease to exist. Furthermore, it begins to expand to other dimensions through dreaming. So when we let go of the external world and fall asleep, in a sense, we are practicing death. And when we wake up, in a sense, we are being reborn. But what is a dream? A dream is a connection to a parallel reality of the inner self. Could be future, past, or any kind of manifestation of reality. And the dream is real. Very often we experience dreaming through our bodies more than through our minds. Our body reacts as if the dream is real, and we have to remember that our bodies are more intelligent than we think. And remember, thinking is of the mind and feeling is of the body. But why are we making such a connection? Is it because there is a message for our deeper self? Might be. The sleep state is the state of no ego. And the dream state is the state of no mind. In our dreams, we experience ourselves as a form of awareness rather than a mental association. We experience the reality of the dream without the mental involvement. The mind is actually asleep. If only we were able to be completely absorbed in the current reality while in the waking state. And we are, but we're distracted by the mind. What is the message then? Upon waking from the dream, we try to process the experience through the mind. Dreams convey information which is broader than what the human mind is capable of perceiving. That is why you, as a self-association, would hardly make sense out of these images. But the deeper self will. The act of praying is extremely powerful. Prayer can be seen as the mind to higher self-connection. It truly is a gift to humanity. We can use it to put into reality our deepest intentions. When we truly pray, we let go. So in a sense, praying is an act of letting go and allowing. We then remove ourselves in order to allow for the deepest intention to manifest. If we are still holding to expectations and our conditioning, then the prayer is meaningless. If we let go of them, then the prayer is meaningful. A prayer can be aimed towards a higher symbol or understanding. Ultimately, if we aim towards God, then we're actually praying to ourselves. Because God is the self and we as human beings are the expression of God. Fundamentally, it does not matter whether we are aimed towards Jesus, Buddha, Gauranga, or Muhammad. We are aiming at the same source. There is no division. We can create our own prayers or mantras. The mantra should come from the heart and not from the mind. Mantra is a form of direct connection to Source, and our minds do not have the capacity to comprehend Source in its whole. On the other hand, our hearts have this capacity. When we chant a prayer, the feeling of connection and love is manifested. Based on this connection, we can confirm that the mantra is matching for us. In my life experience, the following mantras have made their connection with me. I am grateful for the love I am being given. I am not afraid. I love you all. I am love. I am much more than my physical appearance. I am grateful that everything is all right. I love you. The mind is always trying to understand and explain the elements of life. This way there is no uncertainty, no possibility for change. That kind of safety is good for the mind. But music is one thing that the mind cannot explain. It's beyond understanding, beyond the mind. It is intangible and comes from a place unknown that cannot be fully defined. Our minds are so compelled by this phenomenon that they will try to explore it by connecting to the sound vibrations and thus letting go. The listening experience then becomes a form of no mind. Music cannot be felt or perceived by the mind. It is a direct connection to the heart, and since it is only manifested in the now, a direct connection to the present as well. That is why creating music from the mind will never work well. The result will be a combination of sounds with no depth or musicality. So eventually, we come to the understanding that the more ego we put in, or in other words, the more we cling to the outcome of creation, the less space for artistic expression to actually come through. It is truly a channeling experience, both creating and listening. So music is a form of relief from the ego. When we write music, we are connecting to a deeper place. If we let go of the mind, magic can truly happen. The whole process of music making is a mystery to me still. We are channelers in this sense, and we distort and color the channel with our own self. But we should not confuse this coloring as an indication that music is to be possessed. Ultimately, music is no one's, and cannot be either fully comprehended nor owned. In this book, yoga is mentioned a few times already. I would like to share my experience on the topic. It is an ancient method for achieving the highest state of body-mind connection, and a way of attaining the self. Yoga translates to union, the merging of all. It is a path to the selfless self, the true I, a path to self-inquiry. In its essence, yoga combines elements such as movement, breathing, focus, sense withdrawal, meditation, stillness, selfless practice, and self-realization. In my personal experience, yoga has become a fundamental element of expansion. The deeper one goes into practice, the more one realizes the existence of no mind and stillness. This stillness of mind is essential for the path of no ego. And as we already stated, the state of no ego brings upon healing and the natural tendency of being, joy and bliss. It is a doorway for each individual to experience a glimpse of the true self, the undivided self. Yoga has become an integral part of my life experience, and as such has allowed me to serve and share love and light through sharing my practice with others. When we practice, we share a sacred moment of inner peace and love. We practice letting go and opening the door for our highest self to enter. I would like to welcome anyone reading this book to be open-hearted towards this ancient teaching and potentially adhere to it. Chapter 4: Energy and Food. Energy is the main currency for human beings. There are many forms of energy. Every moment of our lives, we are exchanging it with others and with life itself. Let us divide human energy into 3 domains. For example, physical energy, mental energy, sexual energy. As we already discussed, balance is key. If one domain is lacking or depleted, the others will have to compensate. They are all interconnected as well. Balancing them out is not an easy task, but it is the path of connecting with yourself. For example, a person who is exercising and eating well will never perform to his physical maximum if the mental energy domain is being drained. Or a person who does not adhere to his sexual energy would not be able to achieve his highest mental potential. And by adhere to his sexual energy, we do not imply participation in sexual activity. Quite the opposite. So, understanding this multi-layered nature of our energy is fundamental. Energy is always flowing from one state to another. It is not stagnant. It flows from one person to another as well. So if we are unaware and do not cultivate it, we can become depleted. How do we cultivate energy? It is within the realization that we can control our energy exchange with the world. With every expression, we are releasing or taking in energy. And it is our decision whether we dance, laugh, love, fear, work, talk, etc. So ask yourself the questions: do I want to release this energy? Do I want to open myself to this incoming energy? Be aware, even one spoken sentence coming from the inner self may be life-changing to others, as it is a true exchange of energy and expression of the self. That is the type of energetic interplay that we want to aim towards and be aware of. Our mind requires energy in order to process thoughts. When the mind is in constant demand of such energy, the body becomes lacking and a misbalance between the mental and physical domain is created. It is within the stillness of the mind where this balance lies. We are not implying here that thoughts are to be avoided. They do not require anything, they just simply come into our awareness. It is the processing and association with the thought itself that requires energy. This is the main energy leak for modern day people. Thoughts can be allowed into our awareness without the attachment, without the processing. That is the point here. Then they become just like clouds passing by, and we, the sky. From the energetic point of view, shared love is truly a miracle. It is an infinite loop of energy between two beings. It has the potential to bring balance to the domains and bring the person to self-realization. The merging of the two, or the sexual act, is the pinnacle. But sexual practice will either drain or generate energy from or for the body as well. For a male, the act of ejaculation on a physical level will drain energy from the body. This is why one should be mindful of this act. There are ways, both male and female, of having sexual experience without this type of energetic release, and still maintain the desired outcome and experience. If that is the case, we are cultivating energy. We should become aware that sexual energy is the fundamental driving force in our co-created existence. Energy can be generated in the body in various ways. We do not need to rely only on food intake. For example, walking barefoot, grounding yourself, or sun gazing. Sun gazing is a method of staring directly at the sun during sunrise or sunset. While practicing this, sunlight enters and invigorates the body with energy. The energy of the sun is the primordial source. The same process occurs when we look at the stars at night. Starlight enters the body. Maybe that is why, while staring at the night sky, we feel as if we are not alone, as if we are nourished by something beyond ourselves. This gazing at the stars is not something silly that only children attend to. It is a process of receiving energy. And as we said before, children are deeply connected. It is important to mention here that all artificial lights are detrimental to this process. One should be aware that these lights actually take away energy. Physical energy is the body's main currency. It is fluctuating. We can decide how to energize our bodies with it, whether through food, practice, meditation, breathing. We can invigorate the body. Being mindful of one's diet is fundamental, as food will either drain or generate energy within the body. That is why in the following parts, I would like to dive into the topic of food. Good food is the best medicine you'll ever need. Our bodies create and build life from food. The more dead a food is, the more energy your body will invest in the process of creating life from it. Food is health, and the body-mind connection depends on it. Our vessel needs to be healthy in order to facilitate the inner spirit and allow for it to reside there. Food is medicine, but most of us treat it wrongly, as a source of pleasure, as a source of relief. When we have emotions that are undealt with, such as anger, envy, fear, and doubt, we use food to suppress them deeper. We're afraid to fully face them. As these emotions continue to take away our energy and the mind is overloaded, we reach for food in order to receive some form of energy back. This should not be the way. We should rather treat food as a blessing and be thankful for it. Bless your food, invigorate it, focus your awareness into it. Transform the process of food consumption into a ritual of gratitude. This way you bless yourself as food becomes your body. When we are thankful for the food, we are in the center, balanced. And being thankful cannot stem from the ego. So in that state, we are channeling our deeper self. To be able to bless is a true gift that human beings possess. In that state, the mind is directed towards love and appreciation. That is what blessing is. This is one good example of how the mind can be used in a beneficial way, creating a strong body-mind connection. By blessing your food, you invest energy in yourself. Human prayer is powerful. We have the potential to cleanse our bodies and cleanse the food as well. If we consider our being as divine, then our body becomes the temple of the divine. In such a space, there is no place for low vibrational energy, or in other words, one should always consider the kind of food that is entering the body. We should make sure to supply our body with organic and nutritious foods. The most nourishing types of foods are the ones containing life force. There is no right or wrong type of food. We must rather gravitate towards foods which are highly vibrational instead of ones which are non-vibrational. Without being instructive, the foods which are non-vibrational are, for example, overcooked, fried, refrigerated, processed, refined, or imbued with bad intentions. The foods which are highly vibrational are live, raw, enzymatic, freshly cooked, and germinated. If after eating a certain food our energy is being drained, then the food is requiring more energy than it is supplying. The body will indicate if that food is not right for us. It is up to us to listen to the signs. And it's simple. We need to be working together with the body. In order to fully process the energy from the food, one should only eat when the body indicates. And each one of us has a unique reception system for food. We should investigate which food is acceptable for us and which is not. The body will tell us. We need to be deeply in tune with it. And once we have that intuitive connection, there is no place for compromise. Refined foods, such as white sugar, are artificially modified by human beings. They are no longer in the form that nature intended them to be. There is no other species on the planet that consumes refined and processed foods except for humans, and there is no other species on the planet that suffers from such a variety of bodily disease except for humans. When we consume these foods, we are distorting our natural state, as this food is unnatural in itself. Blood sugar rises unnaturally, and then the body reacts, which creates the detrimental cycle. In such a cycle, after a meal, one is more tired than before the meal. This is undoubtedly an indication that this kind of food is detrimental to health. And even though this process is slow in fruition, nevertheless it is detrimental. Again, no other species on planet Earth will survive if after consuming food they are depleted and drained. This is a human phenomenon and a result of the consumption of unnatural, processed foods. One might argue that this is evolution itself, but then obesity, diabetes, severe tooth decay, and other diseases are also a direct result of this evolution. So then, is it really evolution? White refined sugar has become a staple of modern-day people. It is a synthetic food which is not naturally found in nature and thus damaging to the body. It does not contain any valuable nutritional elements, and as such, it actually drains them from the body. White sugar is acidic in nature and does not work well for an alkaline-based diet and body, if that is the case. By feeding oneself with refined sugar, you are feeding microorganisms that thrive on sugar, which are detrimental, such as candida, dental bacteria, yeast, and fungus. Addiction to this substance can be a serious obstacle towards achieving the balanced state of being. Sugar does supply the body with a sense of relief and sensory satisfaction, but it is mainly used to suppress emotions, usually negative ones, and thus a destructive cycle is formed. The key here is to be in tune with the body. we need to be listening carefully. Consuming food is mainly intended for the sustainment of the body and its functions. The higher self does not rely on such sources of energy, and why would we ever listen to our minds when it comes to the food that we integrate in ourselves? It is because our ego is always trying to achieve the goal. Our self-association is always trying to sustain and propagate itself. And if that means eating low vibrational, heavily processed foods or avoiding physical activity, then that is what the mind will tell us to continue doing. What we eat becomes a part of us, and we become what we eat. If someone consumes a plant or an animal, for example, he or she becomes like the plant or animal. The essence of that which is consumed is merged with the consumer. There are deeper characteristics as well. When we eat a fruit, the fruit becomes us. So the question is, which food will build life for us? We want to build rather than destroy. As we've already discussed, there are foods which will destroy life in us. Well, there is no ultimate answer for everyone. The answer should lie somewhere within our own innate intelligence. Our modern diets are based on taste and not on nutrition and health. We assume that if the food tastes good, it is good food. But that is not always true. Food is health, and a major part of us are not functioning to our maximum health potential. We must treat food as medicine. If we only consume by taste, we would be naturally drawn to eat more sweet foods and avoid bitter tasting ones. That in itself is a step away from the healthy state. Indigenous people's diets are something to consider. They have survived throughout the tests of time following their own relationship with food. They have delivered generations of offspring. If we observe such diets, we find that there is no artificial processing, refining, or chemical treatment being applied. They do not modify what was given by nature. The modern-day, heavily processed diet is an unprecedented experiment taking place for the last 40 to 50 years of human evolution. In this experiment, we can eat whatever we want, coming from all parts of the planet, regardless of time of year and season. But seasonal eating is a normal and healthy process. So what will this experiment conclude? I would encourage you to not be a part of it. Generally, we do not need to consume so much food. One should inquire one's true self when taking the decision whether to consume food or not. If we do, we burden our body with digestive processes. Nutritional food or natural food will be more than enough eaten once or twice a day. Immediately after a meal, one's energy should always remain stable. If the energy is drained and the food requires too much processing, most probably it is not a match for you. Being hungry is actually a healthy state. Eating too often is not. The fasting state has a cleansing effect on the human body. When in this state, one's body is not receiving food and the negative elements such as parasites are not fed as well. Dead cells are processed. The body finally receives the much needed rest from digestion. So fasting, if driven by the deeper self, can actually generate energy in the body, rather than leave the body depleted. This process has been part of people's lives all throughout history, as there were periods of lack and periods of abundance. We must become our own physicians and chemists and nurture our bodies according to the information that the body provides. Current prescription medicine does not work well. It prescribes a cure for symptoms, but not a cure for the root cause. And people are being treated as if their bodies are completely the same, but in fact we're all different. We're the compilation of our unique life accumulation and physical attributes. For one's body, one diet might work very well, but for another it might not. We're not the same. In general, we must make sure that we consume high life force foods. The more certain food is processed and decayed, the more energy it requires for the body to build life from it. These kinds of food have less life force to offer to our bodies, and foods which do not contain any life force in them are just an exercise for the stomach and the cleaning agents of our bodies, bacteria, parasites. We are one with our internal bacteria. Our mood, our thoughts, our immune system, our digestion are all interdependent on them. Without these organisms, our bodies would cease to function. On a physical level, we experience life through this symbiotic relationship. Fundamentally, the types of bacteria that we harness determine our experience of life. There are beneficial and non-beneficial types of bacteria coexisting within us. The non-beneficial ones have a deep connection to our body and mind. In some cases, they protect us and make sure we are able to process certain chemicals and foreign substances. One might say, well, then they are beneficial. Yes, but only if the body is acidic and compromised, only when foreign chemicals are reduced internally. Otherwise, they are of no service. In that case, they feed off of our energy and are truly a parasite to us. Such organisms have an effect on the body and mind, resulting in a clouded perception of reality. They can trigger different kinds of cravings, such as food, sex, violence, and self-abuse. When we succumb to these signals, we lower our vibration. That is what these organisms would want to achieve. When the body is in such low vibrational state, they can exist. When the body is in balance, they cannot continue to exist. The overgrowth of these kinds of organisms in the body will result into a form of tunnel vision, where we are excluding most of the sensory input and having a focus only on ourselves as a separate entity. In other words, we are being desensitized towards reality. So we need to be deeply in love with our bodies. We are not the body, we are not the mind, but we need to be grateful for both of them. All of us possess a form of self-hate and masochism. Abusing the body with harmful substances is only one example. The question here is, why are we abusing the body when intuitively we know that we are harming ourselves? It is as if we want to destroy ourselves. But why? The mind can be the only cause for this. The body would never want to abuse itself. We need to treat the body as the temple of God. There is no other way, no compromise. It is such a blessing to have a healthy and vibrant body. It is a miracle of life. We need to take care of it, nurture it, love it, and be thankful, even though the ego might want us to believe otherwise. Air is a form of energy that all of us rely on. The quality of air is of utmost importance. Air is the basic need for human beings. If there were only two substances in this manifestation that would be sufficient for the restoration of the body, that would be pure oxygen and pure water. But in this state of human evolution, finding a place to live with pure air is not an easy task. With every breath we take, we are breathing in foreign chemicals, exhausts, fumes, etc. And the body needs to be able to deal with these pollutants, otherwise we will become intoxicated. When the environment lacks clean air, the body will require a steady intake of dense food in order to build its defenses. That is not the normal state, so the quality of air affects our need to eat. If we switch to an environment with pure oxygen, this requirement will no longer be needed. We will eat less and feel at our highest potential. The easiest way to improve one's vibrancy and health will be to settle in an environment with pure, clean air. Polluted air is acidic in nature. If we are exposed to it, we become acidic. An acidic body will stimulate the growth of detrimental microorganisms, which thrive in an acidic environment, such as Candida, H. pylori, dental caries, bacteria, etc. When they are allowed to overgrow, we acquire diseases such as obesity, digestive disorders, and tooth decay. This should never be the normal state. It is the state of debilitation on many levels. So fundamentally, until the environment is changed, diseases will continue to manifest in our bodies. No medicine will be able to substitute the lack of purity of this fundamental energy.